All right, we are recording. So welcome everyone to our Be Ambitious Zoom meeting. I'm so glad that you all are here. I'm very excited to introduce to you our speaker this evening, Dr. Z.
Well, thank you very much, and a good evening. So I'm Lynnette Zelezny, and it's so happy to be with all of you tonight. I know that this is a very, very busy time with school, but it's such an honor to be with distinguished young women and other friends joining us during this really historic time for women in our country. So such an honor to be with you and so proud to be with you tonight as well. The organizers of this evening's conversation paid me a really great compliment by asking me to share some experiences and some insights with you. And they were kind enough to share that when I spoke in a previous year, that it was a time for inspiration. But I can tell you that it was inspirational for me just to get the opportunity to be with all of you, and that you've all motivated me with this opportunity. I'm delighted to hear about the theme that you're exploring for the month of November, being ambitious, and what a well-timed conversation on this topic. I know there has been progress, but when I was a young woman, your age, I can tell you that being coined ambitious maybe had a little different flavor to it. And so I thought I'd share a little bit about the journey and how proud I am to be where I serve now in my path and in my leadership journey. Ambition was really considered a virtue, but it was mostly a virtue for young boys and not for girls as I was growing up. I grew up in the South, and I grew up in schools in which I didn't even have the opportunity to wear pants to school. So this will give you an idea about how far we've come. Boys were definitely taught to charge ahead and to pursue ambitions. Girls were taught to be very patient and gracious and to wait their turn. And I am an introvert, and so actually this came quite naturally to me, and I didn't push back on it. Boys were encouraged to dream without limits. And while I dreamed, I knew that there would have to be compromises for me as I thought about my own ambitions and my own ideas about a career. And one of the things that was very clear to me early on is that no one ever asked a boy, do you want to grow up to be an astronaut, a doctor, or a college president? Or do you want to be a mother or a father? For boys, they never asked that question. For girls, though, that was constantly a question. And I am here to share with you that you can do it all. When I was in school, I was conscious of limitations. And these limitations weren't set by me, but they were generational. They were of the times. But I want to, again, bring them to your attention, not only about our journey, but also just to hold them in check, just in case there's any leftovers from those generational ways of thinking about girls and ambitions. So studious girls, well, they didn't mostly know what to do with studious girls and ambitious girls where I was growing up. And I do remember that in the 5th grade that I very much had decided that my favorite subject in school was math. And I loved it. I found it intriguing. I loved formulas. I loved getting it right. And I was really good at it. But interestingly, they didn't really know what to do with a girl who liked to do math. And I was subtly encouraged to think about other ways that I might use my interest in math and to think about other directions. And so interestingly, while I did think about those other directions, in the long run, it all still came back full circle, because as I came into my professional world as a college professor, it was interesting that my journey found itself back at that love of math because I taught statistics for 20 years. So while I got that subtle impression that maybe I should find something to do with math or even something totally different as a career, that love and that passion was always with me. It was really always a burning force. And while I don't regret that I lived in a time where this was sort of a subtle message to girls that they might think about other paths other than their dreams. I can also say that living through that experience has made me really, really committed to mentoring, particularly girls and young women and women in executive positions. Because as I later went into my doctoral work and then again chose to do another route that had math involved, which was to get an M.B.A. This was after my Ph.D. It was interesting that my thesis for my M.B.A. was mentoring executive women. So I also wanted to share with you that it's important to really be aware of examples in the past and examples that we see face to face, because they are so very powerful. And we do need to be trailblazers. We need girls and women to raise their hand and say, see me. One of the things that I do in my world as a leader is I'm an executive leadership coach. And many times I speak with young emerging leaders, and one of the important things sometimes they share with me, and sometimes with tears they share this, is I think it's important for people to see me. And I am in complete agreement. It is important for people to see you. It's important mostly for those people that will not even know what your journey has been, but they see you as a trailblazer, and they will be influenced by the fact that you are standing before them. And remember that there's always young girls that will be watching you because of your position as a distinguished young woman in California. So we need voices at the table. And we also know that we need to really recognize about firsts. And for me here at California State University, Bakersfield, I am the first woman president to serve here at this university. But interestingly, I also was a tipping point in the California State University system, which has 23 universities here in California. It's the largest university system in the nation. And my appointment at California State University, Bakersfield was the tipping point of the majority women that were presidents leading universities at four-year universities in the nation. And this was really a statement, not only to the nation, but particularly to emerging young women leaders. So we need more women to be record first. And this is historic because we now see that we have an historic first to celebrate today. And we need to know that it is also important that remarkable young women like you must also step up and think of yourself as the potential first in something that you dream to be. So we need you, and we need you now. And I want you to know that this weekend, of course, we were all watching and eager to get to the end of political ads, but mostly to see if we were moving forward in understanding who would be leading our nation at the national level. And while I don't want to get into politics, I do want to say, for the very first time in over 200 years in our country, having a woman who is on the ticket, but also is the vice president-elect of the United States, is something for us to take notice. And again, although this election was divisive, and some of you may be pleased with this outcome, and others of you may have supported other candidates, it is still a moment to put politics aside and say this is a moment for women. And one thing is undeniable: the highest glass ceiling in the world has just been shattered, and giving every girl and woman in this country a glimpse of daylight that we've really never seen before in the United States. So we need to take a moment and we need to reflect on that. There have been 48 vice presidents of the United States until now, and now we have a vice president-elect that is a woman, and we're seeing history unfold before our eyes. The historic first will lead to others, and perhaps the next first will be accomplished by you. And I want to encourage you to go for those moments where you might be the first. And remember that those are records. And by standing on the shoulders of other generations of women, we know that we can do it. So this year we celebrate the centennial of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. And the suffragists who fought for this right combined courage, perseverance, patience, and ambition that must be seen beyond the scope of the reason at that time. And these women were discouraged at every turn, and discouragement may be part of it as you move into your dream and your destiny. In fact, during this time, when the suffragists were moving forward and making a plea for the women's right to vote, many were arrested. Husbands, fathers, sons, maybe didn't understand. These were brave women, but in some cases, they were called traitors to their sex, but they still fought on because it's what they believed in. And I can tell you, I am emboldened when I look at the women who came before us. They have blazed a path that we all may follow, even to the White House, even if it takes 100 years. And I ask you, where will your path lead? I encourage you to imagine the road ahead. You can get to your destination, but you have to make sure that you're dreaming of that makes you passionate, that which gives you joy, and that you set your course as a destiny towards that dream. And once you've determined where you want your gifts, talents, and hard work to take you, get started on that journey. And make sure to know that you will need the support of mentors. You will need a network. And you certainly have an outstanding network here among your colleagues in the Distinguished Young Women of California program, one that I greatly admire. You will need education and you will need experience, because remember, to gain opportunities in these types of leadership positions, leadership is something that comes with learning, and you'll have to give yourself the opportunities for those experiences to learn to be a great leader and to take these opportunities to be a trailblazer. You will also need a bit of good luck. And of course, I wish that for all of you. But in all of your cases, you are earning your way, and luck will have very little to do with it. It will be with your determination, your grit, and your discipline. And you will need ambition. You must dream big to make your dream your destiny. And this is something that I teach as a model of leadership training. It's one in which we use an appreciative inquiry, where we dream of what it is that we see ourselves being. It is what we see in our future. It is what is in our heart. And it's how do we put that dream into steps that take us forward to that destiny. So with that, let me share with you that I have so much pride in this program. You are the pride of all of us. I know your families, your schools, your region, they are so proud to see that you represent them. And I can't wait to hear what is on your minds when it comes to ambition and thinking about how you really, really empower yourselves with your dream and moving towards your destiny. So with that, let me give you plenty of time for questions, and I'm happy to open up the floor.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. What do you think the best way is to like being able to be ambitious? Because I feel like it's something that a lot of people say, but it's not easily to be able to be followed through. What do you think are the best ways to make sure that you stay on a path?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, Isabella. And one of the things that I teach in leadership training is I use this model that is called spiral up. Spiral up. So many of you in this program have very, very diverse disciplines. For me, because of my interest in math, I really study the scientific method, where I worked on sort of a broad problem and then spiraled down. And I was really good at that. I was really trained to be a scientific method thinker. And many of you have that same training and that same way of thinking. And it's really hard to think about spiraling up because we've been trained to spiral down. And there are actually books that are called Spiral Up. And what it does, Isabella, is it starts with that dream or that ambition, the one that is burning in your heart, the one that you cannot forget. And one of the things I do as an executive leadership coach is I pause and I ask people, so what is the dream? And for women, it's so interesting because we pause so much longer and we feel it's inappropriate sometimes to even say. Even women with PhDs, I've seen this happen. And sometimes there are tears. And sometimes it's so locked in their hearts that they almost have forgotten it. And so one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is to unlock it. If you know what it is that you are supposed to go after, and only you, right? And there will be some that will have their own aspirations for who and what you should be. But to really be that trailblazer, you have to follow your own heart. And the first thing you have to know in that spiraling up is, what is that dream? And so in executive leadership coaching, I usually will say, so what is the dream? And once we get that out and we know what the dream is, well, now I can say, and at what age do you think it is reasonable that you will have that dream opportunity? Because that will make a difference. And I said this in my remarks. So let's say you want to be a university president. Let's use that as an example. Well, what will you need to do for that? And then I'll ask, do you have examples in your mind of people that are university presidents that you admire? Sometimes one will and sometimes they won't. So I'll give an example and I'll say, well, okay, let's think of this person. And let's think about, what did they have to do? Oh, okay, well, they had to have other leadership positions. All right, like what? How long do you think it took them to get those opportunities? What did they have to get those opportunities? Was there education or training or experience? In all cases, yes. And so I will say, well, how long would the education take? All right, let's put that in the bucket. All right, how much experience does it take to be a university president? How many years do you think would be the minimum at being a professor, at being an administrator, at then having the opportunity to be on a cabinet, and then to be the CEO, the lead? How long do you think that would take? Usually, people will underestimate how long it will take, but it's very interesting. Even though we typically underestimate it, what I do is I back it out. I say, well, okay, here's the dream then, right? The dream is here. All right, and let's just back out those years. And then all of a sudden, I can see eyes getting really big. And I say to them, so you realize something today. This is urgent. You don't have a whole lot of time. And what I ask people to do in leadership training is to think about the now and to think about, okay, if you know that that's the path, what can you do in the next 2 weeks that will move you one step up that ladder to the dream? Because that's what it's going to take, step by step by step. What's one thing you can do? It's so powerful because I also say, and now write it down. And then when they do, I say, and now tell me what it is that you will do. Because I'm going to hold you accountable for making sure that gets done. Now I've trained, I do a student leadership training for our students. They're nominated for this academy here at CSU Bakersfield. And I usually train over 300 students at a time on this spiral up methodology that I'm just sharing with you. And what's interesting is I say, now, if you know who the person is that nominated you for this academy, they are expecting you to get back to them in the next 2 weeks. But if you don't know who it is, then you are accountable to me. And that means you will either email me or you will call me and you will say, this is what I said I was going to do, and I did it. You cannot imagine the beautiful messages that I received from students. So many that were paralyzed in some cases to just make that one small step forward. I've heard so many that will say, I just couldn't get that personal statement out. It paralyzed me. But I knew that without it, I wasn't going to be a candidate for whatever it is they were aiming for. And it was so interesting to me because all they would have had to have done was to send the email they sent to me. The personal statement was almost written right there. But they said, had it not been for that nudge, that one step forward in this time right now, in this short time span, I wouldn't have a chance at the dream because I was too paralyzed, and I may have procrastinated. In all of your cases, you are not procrastinators. You're women of discipline. But I share that little methodology with you, because you have to be accountable to yourself, but it helps to be accountable to other people who are supporters of you, that will say, that's it, one step forward. And that one step forward is going to be a huge one, because you're going to have to continue to make those steps forward and celebrate each step as you move forward towards your dream. So I hope that helps, Isabella.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you for the great question. You teed me up there.
Does anyone else
Other
have questions? If not, I have a question.
Well, one thing I mentioned in my remarks, and I want to be really clear about it, is that one set of people that could be really helpful to you are mentors. And I want to be clear when I talk to women. I want to talk to you quickly about the research. So women, I mean, all of you have amazing aspirations. I've read where you're headed, and a lot of women, particularly young women, and this is the research, this is not anecdotal, this is not a story I tell. The research shows that women tend to think of that one woman that's doing what it is I think that I'm going to be doing. And I want you to think about this and think about my remarks. So if your goal is to be the first woman of the United States, who will be your mentor? Well, even if you were able to get the mentor of the vice president-elect, right, it's going to be many women that are going to want that person to be their mentor. So one of the things I want to share with you is there are gender differences in the way we go about seeking out our mentors. Women tend to think of one person. If I could just get that one person, I'm set, I'm in, right? But interestingly, men don't think that way. Men think web. They think, they don't think one person. And I'm going to suggest that you think about your mentors as a network, right? And not that one person. The one thing that you need to realize right now is that right in the experience that you're having right now, you are surrounded by peer mentors. People that at some stage of your professional journey will be able to call someone and say, that was one of my sisters in Distinguished Young Women of California. You must take her phone call. You must answer her email. You must interview her. That's something to not underestimate. But also remember that you don't have to have a woman to be an effective mentor. I never have had a woman mentor that was a woman president or a woman on the cabinet. They were all men. They were all men with daughters, but they were all men. And so I want you to realize it doesn't have to be someone that is the same gender as you to be effective or look like you. An effective mentor is someone that cares about you and your growth. And for leaders, we all know that that is part of our leadership legacy, is who we bring up as other leaders. And so don't forget that part. It is not, as a leader, where you're going, it is important to remember who is it who you have touched, who will transform other people in this world. So think network, and don't underestimate peer mentors in your journey. Casey, you had a question.
I do. So I love that we've learned about your story and how to take those steps towards being ambitious. But as you're on that journey, you're getting your help from your mentors and things. I feel like obviously maybe in your case, you have an example, there's still going to be that kind of pushback against your ambition. And what do you tell yourself? What, do you have a mantra, or do you kind of give yourself a pep talk? What do you do when you have all the ambition, but someone's still being no?
Oh, that's going to happen over and over and over. I'm going to tell you that right now. And there's going to be so many moments that, I'm going to say it, I just felt terrified, just terrified. And people said, but how did you still move forward? It's well, there comes a moment where you have to realize that those sort of negative spirits, maybe your gifts to your ambition. And you're going to have to reframe it, because sometimes they will kind of be really, really, and it'll be something. You're not old enough. Really, you're just too nice. And so you're going to have to reframe that and just say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to look at that as an obstacle. I'm going to look at that as a gift. And that gift is just going to make me better than I was. And so I don't use unnecessary negative energy. I try to really turn that energy into something that motivates me to actually try harder and get it. Which, again, you do have to be a little bit fearless. Are there going to be times when you don't get it? Yes. But there's another gift, okay? Because you can't take any of this for granted. Are you going to make mistakes? Yes. Just don't make these mistakes over and over, right? Learn from the mistake. I have 3 grown children, and they were much like you. And they did so many things right and had so much to offer, but they really were so afraid of making a mistake. And, there were moments, I have to tell you, I told my own children, maybe this is the moment to make that big mistake while you have people all around you that love you and will lift you up, and it'll just get it over with. Well, they figured out they just weren't going to do that, but there is something to be said about that, right? Give yourself permission that what you decide and what you do may be a mistake, right? But learn from it. Learn to make yourself better from it, and realize that is part of the journey. As a woman leader, you're going to have to learn to quickly not be devastated by those mistakes. And mistakes are just or learning to live with mistakes are just like leadership. At first, gosh, it's so upsetting. I'm devastated. I'm never going to be I'm never going to be what I thought I was going to be. Everything's gone. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to give myself 48 hours of just being so upset about this mistake. But then I'm going to have to forgive myself, and I'm going to have to just pull myself up by the bootstraps. And I'm going to have to say, I hope I didn't hurt anyone. If I did, I am so terribly sorry. But I made a mistake, and I certainly do apologize, and I will do better, and I will be better, and move forward. And so you can't let yourself be devastated and derail yourself by those mistakes. You can't. And you're going to have to train yourself to pop up from them quickly. And it's not to be, I'm not trying to say don't care about others, don't be empathetic, especially if there are others that are hurt. And a lot of times that's when we really upset ourselves because we didn't mean to do it, but it happens. But you're going to have to learn to actually be pretty trained at, thinking like an athlete. And it's like, if you fall, you've got to get back up. You've got to, and you've got to finish, even though you're a mile behind, or even though it's so embarrassing, you just got to finish it. And what's interesting is those sometimes are the most powerful stories that you'll have, because people will realize, oh, okay, so I guess I don't have to be perfect. And you don't. Nobody's going to be. So I hope that helps.
That was amazing. Thank you. That is so wonderful. Girls, do you have any other questions for Dr. Z? I know you all are busy in testing.
You've got tests, you've got projects. Just know how much I'm cheering you on. I love, love, love this program. I am one of your biggest recruiters. I find young girls and I give them brochures to say, you need to grow up and do this. This is so important. And so I'm so proud of all that you're doing, all that you represent. And it is the epitome of being strong and being female and really making a transformative difference in this world. And you just have wonderful lives ahead of you. I hope that you will enjoy it along the way. I know right now it's hard to feel like I could enjoy anything because you have so much to do, but remember to celebrate yourselves, because we're sure celebrating you. And for all of the things that you're doing, just know the pride that you're bringing to all of us and to your communities. And I can't thank you enough for being invited to always come and cheer you on, just because you really are such a very special group to me, and you're very, very close to my heart.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. We are so happy you joined us. I am so glad you agreed. I have had multiple participants in the past say what an amazing speaker you are, and I've actually not gotten the chance to hear you speak, and so this was my first time, and that chills the entire conversation. That was wonderful. But we have some people in the chat saying thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much. And again, I'm going to be following your journey. And my email, I'll put in the chat in case you ever need to reach out to me. And if you want me to hear about your next steps, I would love to be there to say bravo. So there's my email. And again, I'll be following all of you. So here's to you. I celebrate all of you and your spirits.
Thank you so much, Dr. Z. Ladies, thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. Best of luck.
Thank you in the chat. Thank you so much. So
go get them.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck with your studies and your projects.